G'day guys, it's your old mate Big J here. Welcome to another edition of Aussie Boxing Talk, and today we're going to go over a couple of things that has happened, but basically I want to focus on last night's Sam LeBruno show that happened at the Melbourne Pavilion, and one fight in particular. It was the main event. It was Desiree Robinson defending her IBF middleweight female belt, women's championship, against Chloe Chaos, right? And also the WBO version of the title. So it was a unified championship bout, not a unification bout. The difference being that Chloe Chaos was not the world champion. It was for Desiree Robinson's IBF middleweight belt and the vacant WBO middleweight belt. This has happened before. Recently, like around this time last year when George fought Vasyl Lomachenko. It was for the vacant IBF belt as well as George's IBO belt. And I'm pretty sure that happened when Klitschko fought Joshua too. Joshua had a belt and there was also a vacant title there as well. So, yeah, to be honest, this was the biggest prize in women's Australian boxing history. The first time ever two girls have competed for two belts, and the first ever unified belt. The first time ever and two Aussie girls fought for a unified championship. So for two belts, that's never happened before in Australian women's boxing history that I know of. Sharon Amos never fought. Former WBC featherweight champion, never had a unification bout. Diana Prozac didn't. She was also a former super featherweight WBC champ. Susie Ramadan never did. Former multiple champ. IBF WBC bantamweight champ. And more recently, Shanika Johnson has never entered into a unification bout. Ebony Bridges never did. If she won her last IBF belt, she probably might have. But this was the first unified two-belt fight for any Australian women's boxing. It was between two Aussies. And so Sam LeBruno deserves a lot of credit to get this fight done, because I imagine the sanctioning fees would have been horrendous from the IBF and the WBO. Normally it's about 3% of the purse, which I don't know what that was. So Sam LeBruno got the job done, and Sam LeBruno has been getting the job done for female boxing for a while. I mean, he did get... The first boxing show I ever saw was the Zarafa versus Hardman card, with Shanika Johnson fighting for her first world title, the IBF super bantamweight title, against the Mexican girl whose name I can't remember, but that was on a Sam LeBruno show. I was there to witness that one. So Sam LeBruno deserves a lot of credit for getting the job done for the girls. Having said that, this was a massive missed opportunity for No Limit Boxing, considering the fact that Desiree Robinson won her IBF middleweight belt on a No Limit show. It was last year, I think it was in November last year, or would have been on the Genovac. I think it was on the Genovac Mikhailovich card. Correct me if I'm wrong. Where Desiree Robinson defeated Kay Scott for the vacant title in a rematch that the girls had. I think it was either March of last year or the year before. So Desiree Robinson come up trumps, and now Desiree Robinson is a unified champion. She's got two belts. So... And it's sad that this has been swept under the rug, because as historic as the Melbourne Pavilion is, where it happened last night at the Melbourne Pavilion, where pretty much every major Australian boxer has ever fought. Anthony Mundine, I think, is one of the only ones that didn't fight there. I think possibly Daniel Gill might not have fought there, but George Kambosos, Danny Green. I don't think Tim Tszyu ever has. Tim Tszyu would be another one. Maybe Jeff Horn never has, but it was... The Pavilion is pretty much a grassroots venue where up-and-coming fighters from Melbourne and all over the country and some internationals get a shot. So there's been multiple world titles there. I'm pretty sure that's where actually, it's history born again, because that's where the biggest female fight was before last night. Diana Prozac versus Shannon O'Connell. I think it was 2014 for the WBC featherweight title. So I think that was the first ever woman Aussie-on-Aussie fight. So the Melbourne Pavilion's got a lot of history to it. I've been there. But at the end of the day, it's a club venue. It shouldn't be, but it's club for me. But No Limit dropped the ball because that fight should have been on the No Limit card, on the Tim Tszyu card the other day. Take away the Venezuelan bloke versus the Danish fella. That was a snoozer of a fight. Killed the vibe. Put that fight in there. So Desley Robinson won on unification. Won on all scorecards. Pretty much it was a blowout from what I've seen. Yeah, but congratulations to Desley Robinson and all the people like the Sam Labruna team that got the job done. But I really think that No Limit really dropped the ball on this one because they're endorsing women who are pretty much back end of their career, like Shannon O'Connell, who's got probably one more fight left in her, or at the very beginning, like Jazzy Parr, who's still completely unproven. So instead of worrying about one girl who's virtually got 1.5 legs in a retirement and one girl who's only got half a foot in her career, let's worry about Desley Robinson, who's at her peak and has a world title. And won the world title on their show. That's the part I don't get. I mean, forget Kay Scott, snap up Desley Robinson. And furthermore, speaking of other contenders, who snapped up Caitlin Parker? As you recall, she won the bronze medal at the French Paris Games last year. The first ever woman to win an Olympic medal in boxing from Australia. So why hasn't no one snapped her up? I'm surprised No Limit have snapped her up because they could easily make, because I think she fought Kay Scott like 5 times. That fight wrote itself. So, yeah, I think No Limit's dropped the ball here a little bit. So, not to criticise the great job that they do, because they do some phenomenal job, and No Limit deserves a lot of credit because they get their fighters the world title opportunities. They really do. Pretty much every main stable fighter in their stable has got a world title shot. Unfortunately, they've all lost. I mean, Tim Tszyu's the only person for No Limit to win a world title fight, and that was against Brian Mendoza. But unfortunately, pretty much everyone else for No Limit has lost. So it's actually really just quite disappointing that this fight of this caliber, the biggest prize in Australian female boxing history, was on a club show, right? And I think the streaming service done itself a bit of a disservice. They wanted $40 for this. $40 for a club show. You've got No Limit charging $70 and no pay-per-views worth $70. I mean, this is what infuriates me. People can barely afford to eat these days, pay their rent, send their kids to school, and No Limit wants $70 for a pay-per-view. I mean, that's a slap in the face. But then again, if you're stupid enough to pay $70 for those fight cards that aren't worth $10, that's on you. You're a moron. I don't pay for them. I go to the pub and watch them for free. Right? Or I wait until they're on YouTube an hour later. I don't pay for pay-per-views. I'm not that stupid. Right? I go to the pub and watch it for free. Sit there and drink water. Maybe I might have a burger or something. I spend $20 at the pub and I'll watch it for nothing. And then I take a couple of fight posters home and sell the secondary ones on eBay for $50. So yeah, if you pay for a pay-per-view, any pay-per-view, you're wasting your money. Because there's lots of ways that you can do it. That you can watch it for free. So, but anyway, it was a little bit disappointing to see that a fight of this magnitude was just on a club show in Melbourne when it should have been on a international show. It should have been on a No Limit card. And I think because the girls would have got paid a lot more than what they did. I imagine Sam Labruna could not afford the money that No Limit could have given them. So especially a Tim Tszyu show. I mean, I don't know how many were in the crowd. It was a sellout, and I imagine the pay-per-view numbers would have been quite large considering Tim Tszyu was coming back. So the girls also would have got that sort of revenue from that. I can't imagine that the streaming service would have done very well at all. I mean, if they got 1,000 buys, that would be a miracle. 1,000 buys is still $40,000, but $40,000 is not a lot of money. So it's a little bit disappointing for the girls that they didn't get the platform that they should have got for this fight. But then again, they have to start somewhere. It's like all women's sports. You got so many women out there complaining, why aren't they making the same amount as the men? Well, that's because they don't generate the same amount of money. That's why. You know, I mean, these women, you know, where are all the feminists watching all these sports? Where's all the support for the girls? You know, the reason why women's sports don't make as much money as the men because they don't generate as much revenue. It's as simple as that. And they can whinge and bitch and complain and carry on all they want. A club show in Melbourne that has a 2,000 seat crowd and maybe a couple more hundred more people watching for a $40 stream is not going to generate the same amount of money as 8,000 people in Newcastle or whatever, however, I think it's 6,500, 7,000 people that the Newcastle Entertainment Centre can hold, plus the 50 to 100,000 pay-per-view buys that Timzoo generate, let's say 50,000, right? 50 times 70 is 3.5 million. 50,000 times 70, 3.5 million, right? You know, it's just not going to be the same. So, anyway, congratulations to Desley Robinson. That was a fantastic effort. Hopefully, No Limits snap her back up and she gets some big fights. But once again, unfortunately, the middleweight division is not where it's at for women. For women, it's 118, 122 and 126 are pretty weak. Then from 130 to 147 is where all the top names are at. Alicia Baumgardner, Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano, even though she's 126. She hasn't fought 126 in a while. Natasha Jonas, Michaela Mayer. Who's the girl that she beat the other day? I can't even remember the name. The British girl that Michaela Mayer beat again in the rematch the other day. Can't remember her name. Sandy Ryan. Who else? The top women the top females in world women's boxing are between the divisions of 130 to 147. That's where they are. Natasha Jonas, I think I've already mentioned her. Celia Brackus is still there. She's still got a belt at 154. So that's and of course we got Carissa Shields who's the heavyweight champ. But there's like 6 girls who are in that division. So yeah, it's just disappointing that, you know, where Desley Robinson is at is not where it's at for female boxing. She needs to drop down 2 divisions, and that's where the big money is. So maybe if she can drop down to welterweight, she'll get some big fights. Or she'll have to convince the other girls like the Michaela Mayers and Sandy Ryans and those to come up to middleweight. And those are massive fights. So let's hope that happens, because Desley Robinson is leading the way for women's boxing at the moment. She's got 2 belts. So who do we have now? So we've got Desley Robinson with 2 belts. Shanika Johnson's still got her belt, even though she's more of a Kiwi. Sinead Keneally's still got the WBA light heavyweight title. And there's one other. No, there was Sky Nicholson, but she lost the other day to Tiara Brown, and I saw that coming a year and a half ago. I knew Tiara Brown would beat Sky Nicholson. Hope there's a rematch for that. But anyway, guys, congrats to Desley. Chloe Carroll, she also deserves a congratulations. Sam for putting the show together and getting, you know, an Aussie girl 2 belts. Well done, Sam. But, you know, No Limit, I think, dropped the ball a little bit. But, you know, those are the breaks, and hopefully Desley Robinson moves on to bigger and better things and gets some big paydays and big fights. But that's it for me today, guys. So as always, tackle the ball, wrestle, crock hard, and yourselves the fuck up, and we'll talk to you another day.